Cassie. You know, when you hear about all the things that she did, think about this. When I heard about those things that she did, I didn't cast judgment. I said, well, she was just trying to get to the top. Because I know this is probably where my wife will pop up and be like, what young women do you know? I remember being young. I remember being 22, 23, 24. So you can't cast judgment on her. Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, having the freak offs. I can say as a man how he treated Cassie was wrong. Yes, I can put it like this. My niece, she may be watching this, when she came down to Vegas, this was around 2018-ish, and I told her, I said, hey, be careful roaming those streets of Vegas. I said, there are guys out there that will, you might think you're meeting the average me. Hey, how you doing? Nice mouthpiece, good conversation, slip you something in your drink, stick something in you, and guess what? All of a sudden you hooked. This is what Vegas is dealing with. So it was no surprise that when I heard what Sean Combs did, I was like, that goes on every single day here in the city of Las Vegas. Every single day. It happens to young ladies. It happens to ladies in their 30s or in their 40s. I even tell my wife now, hey, be careful going out there, because this is the type of town that we live in. You can't cast judgment on Cassie for doing what she did. I said, I remember being young too. I remember being young. And, I know for the holy rollers out there, I never had a youth. Thank God, right? I wouldn't even say thank God, because how would you have a basis to really talk to somebody on? I just remember being young. I remember I was talking to one of my clients today. He said his wife is turning 30 years old. And I said, wow. I said, I remember being 30. I first got married at 27 to my first wife, 28, 29, 30. By the time I was 30, I remember it like it was yesterday. And when he heard I was 47, if I'd have had a child at 17, that's young enough to be my child. I remember being young. I remember almost ending up in Calexico, Arabian Nights. I remember being young. I've evolved in my thought process. The Bible says that when I was a child, I spake as a child, but now that I'm a man, I've put away childish things. So the person that you see today, I told my wife, I said, have I always been this anal? No. Nope. Somewhere around 2002, I was an F up. I was drunk, F up. I always was a hard worker. Always was a hard worker, but I remember there are times where I was folding towels at Marshall Fields. I don't know if you guys know what that is. Back in, when was this? 97? And just because of a wild night of too much of that, being exposed to that, man, I used to go into the linen room, climb the shelves, and go to sleep. And my supervisor would have to look for me. I remember being chronically late for work, coming in barely punching in, just 3 minutes late. And it took one supervisor to set me straight about that. One supervisor put me on a attendance at AIP improvement program, and it jeopardized me moving up in the company. I still moved up. I remember having a problem with the devil's nectar. Before, this is when I was dating my first wife, having a problem with the devil's nectar. And I used to be asleep at my desk, and they used to come to her and they say, hey, is he okay? He's dressed up in a shirt and tie and everything. I remember being young, and that's the reason why I was talking to my wife now, and I said, I think when if I ever become a parent, I'm not going to be I said, you're going to be the strict one. Me, I'm going to be the more upfront one with you make your choices, and there are consequences. There are benefits to some choices, and there are consequences to some choices. You be the judge. I can tell you all day, every day, to do something or not to do something. At the end of the day, you're going to make up in your mind, because we have this thing called free will, that you're going to do what you want to do. Even animals, keep this in mind, even animals have free will. Think about that. Where we going here? Even animals have free will. However, because the Bible says that we should have dominion over them, is the reason why they get trained and housebroken and bent to our will. But I remember being young. I remember being young. I remember parties. And here's the thing. Back in 98, there was no video cameras. There was no video cameras. There are times I was... There were no cameras. There were no cameras. It was just, you had to hear it from somebody. But I remember being young. So Cassie, when they say she was young and impressionable, and she made these choices off of her own free will, we all did things. I mean, and there's a certain select of minority people that have been, that lived a life of the cloth, that haven't done things, but that doesn't speak to the majority. That's one of the reasons why when I say something or call something, it happens like Johnny on the spot, because not only have we all done something, I was the all-aller of doing things. When people say Sean Combs was the life of the party and didn't want the party to end, I understand. I understand having a good time. But to the cost of Cassie, that I don't understand. That was actually, in my viewpoint, hey, go get you a woman your own age and do that with. That's what I gotta say about that. Go get you a woman your own age, and then y'all can hang out like that, because at least she's grown enough and experienced enough in life to be like, oh yeah, I did it, and I knew I was getting into. But we've all been young. I'm 47 years old. Yeah, I've lived. Let's just say I've lived. It's like, I've lived. No regrets. But the man that you see here today, like when you see Cassie on the stand and she's pregnant and she's a mother of going on 3 right now. Cassie's still Cassie. The Bible says, I call you by name. I know who you are, meaning the inner side of us, that inner child that was just crying out, to be accepted. That's what you're seeing today. But don't forget, when you're looking at these scenarios, Don't forget, if you're looking at these scenarios, you're looking at these people, if you're looking at Sean Combs on the stand, do you know how many Sean Combs that are running around Las Vegas? Think about that. Trying to get to that status. And when I say how many Sean Combs, I don't mean in the terms of wealth. I mean, I'm going to say it for the sake of YNs running around. Hey, got the charming smile on their face. Trying to, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. He's just famous. He's just famous and happened to get caught. You know how many people of this color? There was one before Sean Combs. His name was Hugh Hefner. Did the exact same thing. But just remember before you sit there and you cast a stone, remember being young. Peace.